Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the true one and only best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, right here on the John Campea YouTube channel. My name, of course, is John Campea, and I will be your host today. Thank you so much for joining me. And it is, I couldn't believe it. Ann and I went to the gym this morning, 6 o'clock in the morning. That's when we go to the gym. We go to the gym, and Ann goes, "You do realize that it's December now, right?" And I'm like, "No, it's not. It's not December for at least another." And I'm like, "Oh my God, it's December. Like, where the hell did November go?" Anyway, it is December, and I hope you guys have a glorious, fantastic month. The countdown to Christmas is coming. I get to go home to Canada here in about 3 weeks to go visit my family and my friends that I haven't seen in, well, at least a year. So that's going to be really good. So listen, guys, we had a whole bunch of stuff to talk about here today. We're going to talk about all of our favorite things, movies, the greatest thing in the world, film. Now, here's how today's show is going to go. I'm going to take a bunch of topics and questions that you guys have emailed into me. Now, how do you get a topic or a question on the John Campea Show? It's real simple. You email me anytime, simply at john@thejohncampeashow.com, and put the word topic in the subject line. Make sure you put that word topic in there, or else I'm not going to see it. And also, keep your emails to 90 words or less, or I'm not even going to bother reading them, because even if I wanted to use them, I couldn't fit them on the screen. Now, after that, for those of you guys who are watching the show live, I'm going to take some of your live comments, opinions, and questions on Twitter. You're going to tweet to me, wait till closer to the end of the show, but you're going to tweet to me simply at John Campea. Now, there's one other thing that I missed yesterday. Now, we do this show live, and YouTube now has this function called Super Chat, right? And I make a habit that if somebody puts in a super chat, I read it on air, because the way I figure it, if you're going to help me pay the bills, I'm going to read your tweet on air. And I missed one of the super chats yesterday, so I want to get to that right now. That super chat that I missed yesterday came in from Blake Bonecutter. And Blake Bonecutter wrote in the super chat, "John, do you think any major characters will die in Avengers 3 and stay dead?" That's a big distinction. Dying in the MCU and staying dead in the MCU are two very different things. The MC's gone too long without a death, in my opinion. Well, I don't think anybody major is going to die in Avengers 3. I know a lot of people are saying Cap's going to die. A lot of people are saying Vision's going to die because they're going to tear the gem out. A lot of people are saying this person's going to die. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think anybody major is going to die. And when I say major, I mean somebody who has had their own marquee film. Is it possible that a second or third level character from the upcoming Black Panther movie dies? Well, it looks like a lot of action happens in Wakanda, so maybe that's possible. But do I think a Black Panther's going to die? I don't think so. Do I think a Scarlet Witch is going to die? I don't think so. Do I think Vision's going to die? I actually don't think so. And I know I'm in the minority there. So I don't know if anybody's going to die in 3. 4? Avengers 4? That's a totally another question. That's a total another question. I do think we're going to get some significant deaths there, but I don't know in 3. But honestly, I don't know why there's so many people feel like in order to keep the stakes feeling high, people got to die. Well, that's not necessarily true. Who's died in the DCEU? Nobody. I mean, nobody's died in the DCEU. Nobody's significant anyway, right? I mean, Batman's still alive. You can say Robin died, but that was before the DCEU started. Superman, quote unquote, died, but they showed us he was coming back to life at the end of the film that he died in, so he didn't really die. I mean, nobody majors died in these comic books other than maybe Pa Kent in Man of Steel, so I really don't know that in order for us to feel tension and whatever, I mean, James Bond never dies, and we always feel the tension and excitement in a James Bond film. Look, will they kill a character off? Yes. I just don't know that it's going to be 3, to be honest. I honestly have my doubts that it's going to be in part 3. Maybe you guys have some different opinions. Jump down to the comment section and let me know your thoughts. All right, let's move on now to the first official email question of the day. And the first emailed in question today comes to us from Michael Lamar Simeon, who writes, "Hey, John, I just saw your video about 5 reasons the DCEU should reboot. And I feel like Warner Brothers can't just reboot the DCEU just yet because of the giant goddess in the room being Wonder Woman. Sure, the movie was technically a standalone, but it opened with her looking at the pictures she got in BVS and sending Bruce Wayne an email." Okay, so that has really been, this whole issue of Wonder Woman has been kind of like the big sticking point with a lot of people. Because what he's referring to is, I put out a video yesterday called the 5 reasons that DCEU needs to abandon, or that Warner Brothers needs to abandon the current incarnation of the DCEU. And On yesterday's show, I talked about, look, I enjoyed all the DCU films. I've given all the DCU films positive reviews. I love Man of Steel. I quite enjoyed Justice League. But look, what we as fans often do is if we like it, then we cover our eyes to any of the other facts. And we can't do that as fans. If we want our comic book movie genres or our comedy genres or our drama genre, whatever is our favorite genre, if we want our films to be healthy and good, we've got to be willing to look beyond what we ourselves personally like. And I'm somebody who likes the DCEU films, but I got to be willing to look beyond them and acknowledge the problems and the tragedies that they've got right now. And I lay out those things in that video. But the one big sticking point that a lot of people come back to me with, totally understandable too, is, well, what about Wonder Woman? Like, what do you do about Wonder Woman? Like, Wonder Woman was a big success. By any measure, did it hit the $1 billion club? No. But, I mean, it's the biggest box office grossing superhero origin film that we've ever had. It was successful with the critics. The critics loved it. So there goes all that theory that movie critics have an anti-DC agenda. Well, go look at the ratings for Wonder Woman and tell me that again. The critics loved it. The fans seemed to like it. It did really solid at the box office. Do you reboot the DCEU when you've got Wonder Woman that's succeeding? And I acknowledged a couple days ago that Wonder Woman is a tricky thing. Like, what do you do? That you got one film that's successful. And when I mean success, I don't just mean at the box office. I mean across the board. The critics, the fans, the box office. It was successful across the board. It's the only one that's been so far. But what do you do with it? I don't think you can just say reboot without considering Wonder Woman. But at the same time, you can't just say, well, you can't reboot because of Wonder Woman. That's like saying, look, everything in the DCEU is a mess. It's a total mess. We talked about it on yesterday. Like, since Batman vs. Superman came out, all their opening weekends on all their movies have been in decline. Batman vs. Superman, 166 million. Then it drops for Suicide Squad for 133 million. Then it drops again for Wonder Woman to 103 million. Then it drops again for Justice League to 94 million. I mean, that means the audience is abandoning the DCEU. That's just the way you have to interpret that. As the opening weekend box office of the DCU films continues to drop every time, and then Justice League, which should have been up here, ends up being the worst of the bunch, there's no other way to interpret that. The audience has been abandoning the DCU. It's just the way it is. That's not the way I want it to be. That's not the way I personally feel. That's just the way it is. The numbers are the numbers. The facts are the facts. The audience has been giving up on the DCEU to the point that Justice League comes out, which should have been the number 1 or number 2 biggest box office hit of all time, comic book wise, and it ends up being number 22 and worst of the DCEU film. There is no other logical way to look at that. The audience is losing faith in the DCEU, and they're coming out in smaller and smaller numbers. That's just the way it is. Wonder Woman is the one exception. So again, I acknowledge you can't just discount Wonder Woman and just reboot without thinking about Wonder Woman, but at the same time, you can't just say you can't reboot because of Wonder Woman, because that's like saying this. You've got a car. It's a total death trap. It's falling apart. It doesn't, the ignition doesn't turn over half the time. You feel like the radiator's about to blow up. Everything's going wrong with the car, but you go, but you know, I really like the steering wheel in this car. I'll just keep this car. You can't do that. That's what, like, okay, yeah, Man of Steel didn't work for the critics' audience and across the board. Batman vs. Superman was super divisive. Suicide Squad was super divisive. Justice League was a disaster. But let's keep the DCEU because Wonder Woman worked. I mean, you can't just do that. Now, at the same time, I'll repeat it again, you can't just say reboot without taking Wonder Woman in consideration and thinking about what do we do about this one property that has worked for us. You can't just discount that. You can't. But you also can't discount the idea that, hey, this franchise is a mess. We're losing our audience. People have been giving up on our franchise. You can't just say, well, let's just keep going ahead anyway because Wonder Woman worked. Like, so there's a balance there somewhere that's got to be found. And like I acknowledged the other day, I'm not sure where that balance is. I'm not sure where that tipping point is or where that scale really is right now. Because you can't just ignore Wonder Woman and the success that it had. You can't. But you also can't ignore the fact that the DCU is in shambles right now. And oh my God, did you hear that recent news that came out today? I want to put out a solo video about this, but now Margot Robbie was just being interviewed, and she mentioned that there's another solo Harley Quinn movie that they've been working on. So the DCEU is in shambles, but they've got 4 films with Harley Quinn in the pipe on some level. You got Suicide Squad 2, you got Gotham City Sirens, if that's ever going to happen, you got that Joker Harley Quinn movie, and now you've got a Harley Quinn standalone movie. Rome is burning, and Caesar's playing the fiddle. I mean, that's... Okay, I'll talk about that a little bit later in another video, but... So you're right and you're wrong, I'm right and I'm wrong. Can't just reboot without thinking about what to do with Wonder Woman. Maybe there's a solution. Maybe there's a way to reboot the DCU because, damn it, the DCU has freaking Superman! They've got Batman and Wonder Woman and Aquaman and Green Lantern and on and on and on. You got some of the greatest titans in comic book history. This should be, we should be in a place where we're going back and forth. Which franchise is putting out the better movies, Marvel or DC? And then Marvel puts out one. Okay, now Marvel's in the lead. Then DC puts out one. Now DC's in the lead. It should be neck and neck. And it's not neck and neck. It's neck and frickin' bottom of your anus. That's what it is right now. I mean, it's just no competition. DC is wiping, or Marvel is wiping the floor with DC. There's no way around it. Just is. Critics, audience, box office, boom. You can't deny it. You can like Justice League like I do, but you cannot deny Marvel is absolutely wiping the floor with DC. And it should not be that way. DC's characters are too good. DC's storylines and their history are far too good for this to be the state of affairs right now. This is not how it should be. It doesn't help that if the stories are true, that you got executives at Warner Brothers undermining the DCEU just so they can turn personal profit. I talked about that on the show yesterday. Don't even get me started on that again. But anyway, do you ignore all that because Wonder Woman worked? I don't know. You can't ignore Wonder Woman, but what do? I'm dying to hear your guys' thoughts and your opinions. Jump into the comments section. Let me know what you guys think about that. I really do want to hear what you have to say. All right, let's move on to the next topic. And the next topic, let me calm down for a second. All right, and the next topic today comes to us from Billy Bob. And Billy Bob writes, John, what do you think of the Thoroughbreds trailer, and should we go to see Thoroughbreds in order to fully pay our respects to and show our appreciation for the immense talents of the late Anton Yeltchin? Well, thanks a lot for the question, man. And yeah, it's crazy. It was June of 2016 that Anton Yeltchin tragically passed away. What an incredibly talented dude. And to die the way he did, such a freaky, like unbelievable, what are the odds against that kind of like wacky way, is just added to the tragedy of it. And I was unaware until a few months ago about Thoroughbreds. Anyway, the trailer drops. And I got to tell you guys, if you have not seen the trailer for Thoroughbreds, it looks freaking amazing. And I'm not saying that, look, we all have a tendency that when somebody's passed away, whether it's in movies or anything else, we tend to talk more positively of them than we would have otherwise. It's one of the mechanisms we as human beings have to deal with things, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But honestly, this isn't one of those things. This trailer is fantastic. You know, one of the critics that has their quote flash up on the screen in the trailer is something like American Psycho meets Heathers or something like that. And that was right at the beginning of the trailer. I thought, well, that's cheesy. And then I watched the trailer. It's like, oh my God, this movie is American Psycho meets Heathers. This is amazing. And it looks incredible. The 2 lead girls look fantastic. Anton looks wonderful in it. And you know what? This is a movie. You're asking me, should we go to see it to pay our respects? The answer to that, and I don't mean to sound insensitive, is no. You don't owe it to Anton or anybody else to pay money and go to a movie theater, watch a movie that he's in. You should go watch this movie because it looks frickin' awesome. That's why you should go watch this movie. And as a side benefit of that we get to appreciate the talents of Anton Yeltchin one more time, bonus. Absolute bonus. Because he does look fantastic in this movie. But if you have not seen the trailer for Thoroughbreds, it's on YouTube right now. Soon as this show is done, just jump on YouTube, look it up, enjoy it. It's going to jump up. I guarantee you it's going to jump up on it's going to end up being on one of your most anticipated lists. Whether it's most anticipated, top 10, top 20, whatever, it's going to be up there because this movie looks bloody fantastic. I think it looks wonderful. All right, let's move on now to the next topic. And the next topic today comes to us all the way from Brett WB, who writes, "Greetings from Toronto." I love Toronto. I lived there for a while. Longtime fan since the early AMC days. Congratulations on reaching 100,000 subscribers. Well, thank you very much. To my surprise, the new trailer for All the Money in the World dropped recently, featuring a recast Christopher Plummer. Is it as impressive a feat as most pundits are making it out, or is it really no big deal like Ridley Scott is implying? And yeah, so for those of you who did not know, the newest trailer for All the Money in the World, of course, infamously, that was going to co-star Kevin Spacey. Remember, the trailer came out, Kevin Spacey's in the trailer, and I remember it was weird because I watched the trailer and I didn't even recognize Kevin Spacey in it. I thought it was Christopher Plummer, and then they replaced Kevin Spacey with Christopher Plummer. Anyway, so Kevin Spacey's in the trailer, then the whole controversy about Kevin Spacey hits. And this was funny. For those of you who weren't around during this time, somebody wrote into me and asked, "Hey, John, what do you think about them?" This is before they announced they were doing it. Somebody wrote to me and said, "John, what do you think about the idea of them hiring another actor and replacing all of Kevin Spacey's scenes with a new actor?" And I said, "No, you can't do that. It would take far too long. The movie's coming out in just a couple of months. Take far too long, cost far too much money." Like 48 hours later, they announced that they're bringing in Christopher Plummer to replace the scenes with Kevin Spacey. Now, in my defense, what I did not know at the time, and what they revealed in the reports when they said Christopher Plummer was coming in, was that Kevin Spacey only shot for like 2 weeks. He wasn't in a ton of the movie, and like his complete shooting time was less than 2 weeks. Now, had I known that, then maybe I would have said it's possible that they could do that. But anyway, they felt they could do that. They brought in Christopher Plummer, shot with him for a couple of weeks, enough so that they've recut a brand new trailer, and the trailer looks even better. And I'm not just saying that because of the Kevin Spacey thing. No, I mean, the trailer looks actually a lot better even than the original did. And I know Sony's got a lot of faith in this movie. I know Ridley Scott's very excited about this movie. I think the movie looks like dynamite. And you know what? I was a little bit worried when they were going to cut in the new Christopher Plummer scenes that it was going to feel patchworked. You know what I mean? But the trailer at any point to me felt smooth as butter. Like it felt completely smooth to me. Loved it. So yeah, it looked great to me. All right, let's move on to the next one. And this next one today comes to us from Richard Copeland, who writes, "Hey John, big fan of the show." Thank you so much, Richard. "I was just wondering, with the musicals seemingly re-entering the mainstream with Greatest Showman, Pitch Perfect 3, Mamma Mia 2, and a plethora of Disney movies in production, why is it all quiet on the Broadway adaptation front? Wouldn't now be the perfect time to adapt Hamilton, Anastasia, Phantom of the Opera, etc.? Strike whilst the iron is hot, as the saying goes." Well, thanks a lot for the question, man. I mean, there's a couple of things you have to keep in mind. Number one, they have tried Broadway adaptations to the big screen, and they have not always worked. Rent is a great example of that. Rent didn't translate great to the big screen. There has already been a Phantom of the Opera. Also, like one or two of the movies, like for instance, Pitch Perfect 3, that's not a musical. Pitch Perfect 3 is just a movie that has a couple of musical numbers in it, but it's not like Moulin Rouge. Like it's not like Chicago. It's not like The Greatest Showman. It's not a musical per se. So that's a little bit different too. So, and also, look, 500 movies came out this year. If we can point to 3 musicals, we can't say that's the new trend, 3 out of the 500. I mean, so you got to be a little bit careful about that and how we consider that. Now, when you mention things like Hamilton, you would be forgiven, obviously, for thinking, well, look, Hamilton is one of the biggest pop culture things in the world right now. Why not make it a movie? I don't know this for sure. This is just what I'm guessing. I don't think the people who own the rights to Hamilton want it to be a movie yet. They are making so much money hand over fist with their stage productions and with their CD sales and all this kind of stuff. Why would you want to go and do a movie now? Do a Hamilton movie. Look, I guarantee you within the next 4 years, we'll hear about, you know, a certain studio getting the rights to do Hamilton and they're going to make a Hamilton movie. That's going to happen. But I have a feeling the reason it has not happened up till now, and maybe it'll happen soon, but the reason I don't think it's happened up until now is because they could have gotten a movie made about this 6 months ago if they wanted to. But I think they've just really been riding the wave of success and understanding, hey, we're making tons of money right now. Our live stage thing might suffer if a movie comes out. People are going to rush out to see the movie instead of the staging. Why don't we get the best of both? Why don't we get the best of both worlds and have our stage play, have everybody come and see the stage show, and then in a couple of years we do the movie version and everybody go see the movie version too. So that's probably why that's happening. Musicals are an acquired taste. There's not enough people out there that really love them, appreciate them, they can put out too many of them. So every once in a while, yeah, you get a Moulin Rouge and you get a Chicago, and those are great, but I think they have to be spaced out properly. And who knows, maybe Greatest Showman will be this big smash hit and everybody will love it. I think it looks amazing. Aside from Star Wars, it's my most anticipated movie for the rest of the calendar year. And we'll see if that kind of changes anything. But that's why I feel like the situation is the way it is right now. All right, let's move on to the final email question of the day. And then I'm going to go, after the final email question, to you guys who are watching live and take some of your live tweets. But for now, let's get to that last live question. And the last live question today comes to us from Seth. And Seth writes, "Hey, John, just announced that the Infinity War trailer is the most watched trailer of all time, well, at least within the first 24 hours, with 230 million views in 24 hours. Do you think the chances of this film making $2 billion are far more likely?" All right, thanks a lot for the question, man. And yeah, for those of you who have not heard, that Infinity War, that amazing Infinity War trailer has just shattered the box office record. The previous record holder for the most views in the first 24 hours was It. And It had 197 million views in the first 24 hours. And along comes the Avengers Infinity War thing, smashes that record. 230 million times it's been viewed in the first 24 hours. Amazing, well-deserved. The trailer's fantastic. I love it. So the question is, well, since it got that many trailer views, are we ready to say it's going to make $2 billion? I think the odds of this movie making $2 billion are fairly good, even without the trailer thing. Now, I was in one discussion late last night with somebody telling me that, John, it's obvious, if it breaks the record for most trailer views, that means it's going to shatter, it's going to break Star Wars The Force Awakens box office record of like a $247 million opening weekend. It's going to beat Avatar for the all-time worldwide record and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, well, why? Because the trailer views? Look, let's keep this in perspective, okay? I put this little graphic together. Let's put this in perspective, okay? Now, for those who want to say that the number of views that a trailer gets directly correlates to how much money it's going to make at the box office, well, let's look at this. The old record holder was Star Wars The Force Awakens. It had 112 million views of its trailer in the first 24 hours, and it ended up with $2 billion at the box office. Okay. Well, then, the trailer that broke Star Wars The Force Awakens record was actually 50 Shades Darker. That's right. 50 Shades Darker broke the record with 114 million views in the first 24 hours. Well, according to the logic, if Star Wars The Force Awakens had 112 million views and made $2 billion, and 50 Shades Darker breaks the record with more trailer views, that means 50 Shades Darker is going to make more than $2 billion, right? Well, no, obviously not. It ended up making $380 million, which, I mean, hell, I would love to make a movie someday that made $380 million and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so then a little bit later, let's move down the line a little bit. It comes out. It breaks the record, and it gets $197 million. Well, as the logic would go, if it makes nearly double or has almost double the amount of views that the Star Wars The Force Awakens trailer had in its first 24 hours, that means it is going to make $3 or $4 billion at the box office, right? Well, obviously not. It made almost double the amount of 24-hour trailer views, but it only ended up, what a stupid way to put it. It ended up making $688 million at the box office. Huge number, nowhere close. Not even remotely close to what Star Wars The Force Awakens did. Look, I'm obviously not saying that Avengers Infinity War isn't going to hit $2 billion. It's certainly possible. But the fact that it broke the trailer view record doesn't really tell us anything one way or the other. Remember, the record holder was 50 Shades Darker, and it came nowhere near The Force Awakens. It like destroyed The Force Awakens' first 24-hour trailer view period, but it didn't come anywhere near the box office it did. My whole point is simply this. The number of trailer views could be attributed to a lot of different factors, and it does not necessarily mean there's going to be any correlation between it and what the box office ends up being. What it does tell us is that people are very excited about this movie. And also, don't lie, you watched that trailer 5 times. Everybody watched that trailer 5 times. I watched it 6 or 7 times. I had one guy in my chat board earlier saying, I've watched it 400 times. Okay, that's great. But the number of factors that would go into any trailer, this one, a new Star Wars one, another, I don't know, Harry Potter one, whatever, the number of factors that go into how many times a trailer gets viewed are legion. There's many of reasons, many factors that go into it. All I'm saying is that there's no direct correlation between, obviously, I mean, I'll just bring up the chart one more time. Obviously, there is no direct correlation between number of trailer views to actual box office success. I mean, there's no direct line connecting them. Can it tell us that there are segments of people that are very excited about the movie? Absolutely. Is Avengers Infinity War going to be a massive global hit? Absolutely. Will it hit $2 billion? Totally possible. Will it hit $200 million on its opening weekend? Totally possible. Avengers Age of Ultron didn't. I think Infinity War does. I still don't think it has the slightest prayer of catching Star Wars The Force Awakens opening weekend box office record. Because again, Age of Ultron came out and it had a lower box office opening weekend than the first Avengers did. Not by much, but a little bit. So I don't think you're going to suddenly see that turn around and have this huge leap forward. Although it'll be big. It'll be very, very, very big. And maybe it will catch it. Who knows? All I'm saying is that the number of trailer views it has won't really have anything to do with what its ultimate big box office results have been, because we've seen the numbers prove that before. So that's all I'm saying. But how excited are we for this movie? God, Thanos looks so good. Okay, guys, listen. It's now to the part of the show where I'm going to take your guys' live Twitter questions, and this is how we're going to do it. You guys who are watching live right now, you can simply tweet into me at John Campea. Just start a tweet with at John Campea, and then I will come back here and take just as many of those tweets as I can, and maybe you'll see your tweet pop up here on the bottom of the screen. Now, but before we get to that, it is time of that day for my 1-minute shameless plug to keep the lights on and pay the bills around here, which is my shameless plug for my Patreon campaign. We'll be back in 1 minute. Here's my little plug. For those of you who have followed me for any period of time, you guys know that I made the decision recently to leave the corporate overlords. I no longer wanted to work for corporations. I wanted to be an independent content creator. And the only way I've been able to do that is by the support of my Patreon supporters. So what I would like to do is to ask you guys who watch my shows, who spend any amount of time with me every single month, to consider going over to www.patreon.com/John Campea. There you'll get all the information about what exactly does it mean to be a Patreon supporter of mine? What does being a Patreon supporter do for helping to make sure that shows like this one and all the other shows I do here on my channel can actually be produced? And on top of that, what benefits are there to being a Patreon supporter? And maybe if you guys can check that out, if you decide you want to be one of my Patreon supporters, that would be awesome. And if you don't, that's perfectly fine too. I'm just happy that you guys have decided to be here today and be a fellow movie fan and join us in the conversation. So go and check out the website, see if you want to become a Patreon supporter. And now let's get back. All right, and somebody's telling me in the chat board that I missed a super chat. Do me a favor, guys. Find that super chat, copy and paste it, and put it into the chat board so I can read it. It's difficult here. I've got like 4 monitors here all over the place, and I missed a super chat. So find that super chat for me. Copy and paste and say super chat and copy and paste that thing in there so I can read it out here on the screen, because I want to make sure I don't miss that. Okay, let's get on with it now. I'm going to open up my Twitter board here. Open up my message feed on Twitter as everybody starts looking in to finding that stuff. And for whatever reason, Twitter is broken. My Twitter feed is not broken.